How can you sell the condo? I made a commitment to my wife. Give me the cash from the sale immediately. Devin yelled these words at me with an intensity I had never witnessed in his eyes. Tasha sobbed behind him, gripping her chest as if she were experiencing a panic episode, but I simply took a breath and replied calmly, "There's another piece of information you need to know." As soon as I said that, I saw the shift in my son's expression. First came confusion, then fear, followed by that shaking in his hands that appears when someone feels unstable. "But Mom," he stuttered, his voice quivering, "my wife and I have no place to go. We can't live outside." In that exact moment, I realized I had triumphed because for so many years I was the one who felt shaken. I was the one who pleaded. I was the one who lived in dread. But that version of me no longer exists. I am Clara Mae Johnson. I am 65 years old. Until 6 months ago, I was unseen by my son, unseen by my daughter-in-law, and even unnoticed by myself. I resided in a 2-bedroom apartment that my late husband and I purchased 3 decades ago. It wasn't luxurious. The walls had watermarks in the corners. The kitchen was tiny and dim, but it was mine. It was the sole spot in the world where I still felt like more than just a ghost. My husband Thomas passed away 7 years ago. He left peacefully in his sleep, without pain, without saying goodbye. Since that moment, my life has been a quiet routine. I arose at 6 o'clock a.m., made coffee in the same old percolator that emitted an odd sputter. I cleaned the floor, gazed out the window, and waited. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. Devin was my only child, my sole close relative. Following his father's passing, I believed we would grow closer. I thought he would come to see me more frequently, that he would call to check in, that he might, just maybe, ask me out for dinner occasionally. But no, Devin had his own life. He had Tasha. He had his work, his friends, his plans, and I was merely a name on his list of things to do. A brief phone call every 2 weeks, a required visit during Christmas. Nothing beyond that. Initially, I attempted not to take it to heart. I convinced myself it was typical, that children mature and move on, that I shouldn't be selfish. But loneliness is a heavy burden. It presses down on your chest like a rock, gradually pulling you down so slowly that you don't realize it until you struggle to breathe. Devin's visits were always the same. He would knock, enter without a smile, and sit on the couch with his phone in hand. "Hey, Mom. How are you managing?" "I'm all right, son. How about you?" "Good. Busy." Then a pause. The awkward quiet only had the sound of his cell phone alerts filling the space. I thought about offering him some coffee. He'd reply that he didn't have time for that. I'd bring up Tasha. His replies were short and to the point. I would attempt to share something about my day, the neighbors, or anything at all, and he would glance at his watch. He always seemed to check his watch, as though every moment with me was taking away from his actual life. But I kept smiling. I always kept smiling because he was my son. A mother doesn't quit. A mother keeps pushing on even when it's painful, even when she feels unseen. Tasha was not the same, or at least she appeared different at first. When Devin first introduced her to me, she smiled often. She hugged me, sweetly called me Mama Clara, and brought me inexpensive flowers from the grocery store. And I, feeling so lonely and craving affection, allowed myself to be deceived. I believed I finally had someone else in my life, the daughter I always longed for, someone to converse with. But the flowers died, and with them, Tasha's facade began to crumble. Slowly, I began to notice her lingering looks. Those brief glances, she would avoid our apartment when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Looks that assessed, calculated, and judged everything. The walls, the furniture, the entire space. That was when I realized, to her, I was not a person. I was simply a barrier between her and what she desired. The insults began in a subtle way, so subtle that initially I thought I was overreacting. One day, Tasha came over with Devin and remarked, "Mama Clara, this couch is really old. You should consider getting a new one." I answered that I couldn't afford that. She smiled and said, "Well, when this place is ours, The first thing we'll do is renovate everything. When it's ours, as though they had already made plans, as if my death was just a matter of time. Another evening, they were having dinner at my house. I had spent hours preparing. I made the smothered pork chops my son adored when he was younger, but Tasha hardly touched her plate and remarked, "It's a bit too salty, isn't it, Dev?" And my son, my very own son, nodded without even glancing at me. They left their meals nearly untouched, and I, true to form, remained silent. I tidied up quietly as they discussed their aspirations, their ambitions, their future. A future in which I was absent. However, there was a particular moment that altered everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the restroom when I heard Devin and Tasha walk in. They hadn't informed me of their visit. I caught their voices coming from the living room, and the tone made me stop in my tracks. I listened closely. "How much do you think this place is worth?" Tasha questioned. "I'm not sure. Maybe around $280,000, Devin answered. "With that amount, we could make the down payment on a real house, a spacious one." Tasha's voice brimmed with enthusiasm. "But your mom won't sell, will she, Devin?" He chuckled, a dry and unsettling laugh. "Nah, but she's not going to live forever. And when she's gone, this place is mine. It's the only inheritance I have." Tasha sighed with relief. "Thank goodness, because honestly, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep pretending to like her." I felt something break inside me, something that could never be fixed. I stayed in the restroom, my hand over my mouth to stifle any sound. The tears flowed openly, but they weren't tears of sorrow. It was something far more profound. It marked the end of a fantasy, the fantasy that my child loved me, that I mattered to him at all. When I finally exited, they were on the sofa. Tasha greeted me with a smile. "Mama Clara, what a surprise. We didn't know you were home." That was a falsehood. They were fully aware. They just didn't care. Devin didn't even glance my way. He was busy with his phone. I smiled again. I offered them coffee. They turned it down. They lingered for another 10 minutes before leaving. I settled onto that old sofa, which they so despised, and questioned myself, when did I become this? Someone merely waiting for her own death to stop being a nuisance. Time crawled after they departed. I looked at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city, the moving cars, the distant chatter, and the wind against the window. At some point, in the midst of darkness and quiet, I made a choice that would transform everything. I wouldn't continue waiting. I wouldn't stay invisible. I wouldn't surrender my life to someone who merely awaited my demise. For the first time in 7 years, I felt something akin to anger. But it wasn't explosive rage. It was cold and calculated. It was the fury of someone who was finally starting to awaken. The next morning, I rose feeling changed. I can't quite describe it. It was as if something inside me had solidified overnight, as if all the tears I had shed had cleansed away something old and decayed, creating space for something new, something more resilient. I got up, prepared my coffee, but on this occasion, I didn't find myself gazing out the window as usual. Instead, I retrieved an old notebook from a drawer and began writing. I recorded everything that came to mind, every insult, every painful remark, every disdainful glance. I needed to witness it. I had to grasp how oblivious I had been. By the end, I had filled 5 pages. 5 pages confirming that it wasn't just in my head, that I wasn't delusional, that they had truly diminished me to nothingness. The humiliations persisted. They actually intensified. It was as if Devin and Tasha were aware of my transformation and felt the need to remind me of my position. 2 weeks after that discussion, I overheard that they were visiting once more. This time, they brought new information. "Mom," Devin said without even a hello, "we need to discuss something crucial. Tasha and I are searching for a home. We wish to start a family, but everything is so pricey." I nodded. I didn't say a word. I simply waited. Then Tasha spoke in that sickeningly sweet tone I despised. "Mama Clara, we know this place is way too big for just you. 2 bedrooms for 1 individual. It seems wasteful, don't you think? You could move somewhere smaller and cozier, and perhaps, well, you could sell us this home at a reasonable price. A family price. A family price. The phrasing sounded appealing, but I understood the implication. It meant they wanted me to part with my only valuable asset, to relinquish the home my husband and I had acquired after 30 years of labor, all so they could begin their lives without making compromises, without the hard work we endured. I inhaled deeply and said to them, "I'm not ready to sell. This place has too many memories for me." Devin made a face. "Mom, don't be selfish. You won't need it much longer anyway. At your age, why hold on to material possessions? You should be focusing on your son, on your family." Tasha nodded, fake tears brimming in her eyes. "But we were really depending on this, Mama Clara. We had already made arrangements." Arrangements? They had made plans for my life, for my home, without even consulting me. And the most frustrating part was how they expressed it as if it were perfectly normal, as if I owed them my life. I remained quiet. I refrained from arguing. I only told them I would consider it. They left content, confident that I would eventually give in, as I always did. I consistently ended up conceding to their wishes, but this time, something felt different. This time, when I closed the door behind them, I didn't feel remorse. I felt resolve. I felt a sense of clarity, and I realized precisely what I needed to do. 3 more weeks went by. 3 weeks went by during which Devin called me daily, not to check on my well-being or to offer help, but rather to pressure me. "Mom, have you thought about our earlier discussion?" "Mom, we discovered an ideal house, but we need the down payment." "Mom, please don't make this difficult." Tasha would also send lengthy texts filled with sad emojis. "Mama Clara, I understand it's challenging for you, but think of the grandchildren you might have. Don't you wish for a good home for your future grandkids?" Each message felt like a strike. Every phone call served as a reminder that, to them, I was merely a means to an end. My anger grew, icy, silent, and intense. Then came the moment that altered everything permanently. It was a Friday. I had gone to the bank to complete a simple task of updating my information, not anything major. While I was waiting, I overheard a conversation between 2 women. One, who was younger, told the other, "My mother-in-law finally sold her house. She bought a small condo, and with the leftover money, she went traveling. She says she spent her entire life working for others, and now she wants to live for herself." The other woman laughed, commenting on how brave that was. "I wouldn't have the courage to do that. My family would be furious." Then the first woman said, "But it's her money, her life. Why should she need to ask for permission?" Those words resonated with me. Why should I have to ask for permission? It was my condo, my life, my choice. No one had gifted it to me. My husband and I were the only ones who had paid the mortgage. Yet I had spent months feeling as if I didn't have the right to decide what I wanted regarding what belonged to me. As if I owed everything to Devin simply for being my child. That wasn't love. That was manipulation. I had let myself be manipulated for far too long. After leaving the bank, I had a clear plan, one that surprised even me with its boldness. But I didn't hesitate. I couldn't hesitate. This was my only chance. That very afternoon, I looked up real estate agencies online. I found one with positive reviews and called them. A friendly voice greeted me. "Good morning. How can we assist you?" I responded, my voice quaking only a little. "I want to sell my condo quickly. No extensive advertising, and not too many people should be informed." The woman asked me some questions about the address, size, and condition of the place. Then she told me, "We can send someone out tomorrow to appraise it." "That sounds great," I said before hanging up. I sat on the couch with my phone in my hand, feeling my heart race. I had just taken my first step, and there was no going back. The next day, an agent arrived, a man in his 40s wearing a gray suit and a professional grin. He walked through the apartment, took pictures, jotted down notes, and finally said, "I said to Mrs. Johnson, this property might be valued around $280,000, and a bit more if we make some small fixes. However, if you're looking to sell quickly, as you mentioned, we could get $250,000 in under a month." I nodded in agreement. "Let's proceed with it." He seemed taken aback. "Don't you want to discuss this with your family first?" he asked, as most people do. I interrupted him. "I don't need to ask anyone. This is my choice." He smiled, gave me the papers to sign, and within a week there was a potential buyer, a young couple who needed to relocate fast for a job. They offered $270,000 in cash. No loans, no hassles. I accepted right away. Throughout this period, I didn't say anything to Devin. He kept reaching out, applying pressure. "Mom, have you made a decision? We need to know. Tasha is getting worried." I responded with vague replies. "I'm still considering it, son. Just a bit more time." He would grunt in irritation, but he didn't push too hard because he believed I would eventually give in, as I always had. But while he waited with confidence, I was busy signing documents, finalizing the sale, and getting the money deposited into my account while searching for a new home, a smaller one-bedroom unit in a peaceful area. It cost $175,000. I bought it outright with no loans or debts. The remainder of the money, over $100,000, went into an investment account suggested by the bank. The move happened quickly. I hired a small moving company and packed only what I truly needed: clothes, a few books, pictures of my husband, those precious memories. I sold or donated everything else. I didn't require much. I never had. 3 weeks after making my decision, I was already living in my new condo. It was small, true, but it was filled with natural light, had a practical kitchen, a clean bathroom, and most importantly, it was completely mine. No one else had a key, and no one else had ever been there before me. It was my own space, my new start. For the first time in many years, I felt a sense of calm. Still, I was aware that trouble lay ahead. Devin still had no clue, and when he found out, chaos would inevitably follow. So, I got ready for it. I organized all the sale documents into a binder. I printed out bank statements that clearly indicated where the funds were allocated. Most crucially, I had covertly recorded my final discussions with Devin and Tasha. Those conversations where they referred to the condo as if it was already theirs, where they plotted their plans for the property once I was gone, and where Tasha expressed her frustration about pretending to like me. I possessed all the proof I needed and was fully prepared. On Tuesday afternoon, while I was organizing the last of the books on the shelf in my new condo, the phone rang. It was Devin, and his tone seemed oddly cheerful. "Mom!" "Hey, I'm glad you picked up. Tasha and I would like to take you out for dinner this Friday. It's been a while since we've all spent time together." I hesitated because Devin never invited me for dinner. Never. "Sure, son. What time?" 7. "We'll come and get you. Don't worry about anything. It's on us." After hanging up, I realized exactly what they were up to. They had decided to change tactics. The direct pressure had been ineffective, so now they would employ subtle manipulation, feigned affection, and forced kindness. But I was no longer the same gullible woman I used to be. This time, I was fully aware of what was coming. Friday came, and I chose my outfit with care. I wore a chocolate brown dress that I had bought years ago but seldom used. I styled my hair and put on a little makeup. I wanted to feel empowered. Devin arrived precisely on time. He rang the bell at the old condo, which no longer belonged to me. I waited a few seconds before heading downstairs. When I emerged, I spotted him next to his car, looking at his phone with a frown. "Mom!" he exclaimed as soon as he noticed me. "What took you so long? I was about to come upstairs." "I had to get ready," I replied in a calm voice. We got into the car where Tasha was already seated in the front. She turned around with an enormous smile. "Mama Clara, it's wonderful to see you. You look fantastic." Her words were sweet, but her eyes were cold. We headed to an Italian restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it wasn't inexpensive either. Devin opted for a table in a quiet corner, away from the hustle and bustle and other diners. It was an ideal location for a private discussion. We placed our meal orders. Tasha chose pasta, Devin picked steak, and I went for a simple salad since I wasn't feeling hungry. My stomach was in knots, not from fear but from expectation. For the first few minutes, they discussed insignificant topics. Devin's job, a friend of Tasha's who had just gotten married, and various weather conditions. I merely listened, nodded, and smiled at appropriate moments, waiting patiently for the true purpose of tonight's dinner to surface. This moment came just as our main courses arrived. Devin dabbed his mouth with a napkin and fixed his gaze on me. "Mom, we have something serious to discuss. Tasha and I have been doing a lot of thinking, and I'm concerned about you." I glanced up. "Concerned about me?" "Indeed," Tasha replied, leaning closer. "You live by yourself in that large condo. Given your age, anything could occur. A fall, a health scare, and there'd be no one around to help." Devin agreed. "That's why we believed it would be better for you to move in with us or sell the condo for something smaller, safer, and nearer to us." I simply said, "Ah," while they anticipated my reply. They were waiting for me to express gratitude, relief, that usual acceptance I had always displayed. Instead, I took a sip of water and stated, "It's very kind of you to be concerned. I'll consider it." Tasha blinked in surprise. "But we need an answer quickly. Mama Clara, Devin, and I have already found a house. We just need the down payment funds, and we thought if you sold your condo, you could lend us a part of it, or maybe give us an advance on the inheritance." Her statements were so direct that they nearly made me laugh. An advance on the inheritance, implying my death was a planned event on their timeline, as if I were merely occupying space until they could benefit. "I'll think about it," I repeated calmly. This time, Devin became tense. "Mom, we've discussed this for months. You can't keep delaying us." I felt my anger rising inside, but I didn't express it. Not just yet. Instead, I smiled. "Son, this is a significant choice. I need more time to decide." Tasha sighed dramatically. "But Mama Clara, we are truly relying on that money. We already informed the seller that we want the house. If we don't provide the deposit soon, we will lose it. There are no other options. Your condo is our only solution." How convenient, I thought. Their only solution was my compromise. We concluded dinner in awkward silence. Devin paid with an irritated expression, and when they dropped me off at my place, Tasha gave me a chilly embrace. "Think carefully, Mama Clara. We don't intend to pressure you. We just want what's best for everyone." The next few days brought an overwhelming flood of messages. Tasha sent me pictures of the house they wished to buy. "Look, Mama Clara, it has 3 bedrooms, a yard, and a garage. It would be perfect for when we have kids. Your grandkids could play here." Every message was a trap. Every photo was a manipulation. They were attempting to make me envision a future that could never actually happen because I was aware of the reality. I understood that if I handed them the money, I would never reclaim it. I realized that the grandchildren were merely a made-up story meant to soften my resolve. I knew that as soon as I fulfilled my role, they would cast me aside, just like they had in the past, and I refused to let that happen. No. This time, Devin contacted me as well. However, his messages were different this time. They were less kind and more urgent. "Mom, I require a response. Yes or no. It is straightforward. It is not that simple, son. It involves my life. It concerns my savings. But I am your son, your only family. You shouldn't have to care for me forever just because I am your child." There was a pause on the line. A heavy, unsettling silence. "So, are you saying you won't assist us? I'm saying I need some time to reflect." Devin ended the call without a farewell, and I gazed at the phone, feeling the final thread of affection I had for him break entirely. A son who loves his parent doesn't pressure them like that. A son who cares for you doesn't make you feel bad for wanting to live your life independently. A week later, Tasha appeared at my place unexpectedly. She rang the doorbell insistently. "Mama Clara, please let me in. We need to chat." I was on my way to my new condo, having forgotten a few essentials I needed to grab. I opened the door slowly. Tasha's eyes were puffy and red, indicating she had been crying. "May I enter?" We sat down in the bare living room. Most of the furniture was already gone. She looked around, bewildered, but chose not to say anything. "Mama Clara," she started, her voice shaky. "I've come to say I'm sorry. I know we have been quite forceful. I understand we put a lot of pressure on you, but we are in a tough spot. Devin and I have been saving for years, and it's never sufficient. Everything costs so much. When we thought about your condo, it gave us so much hope." Hope? What a peculiar way to frame greed. Tasha went on, "I really don't want you to think we are only focused on the money. We genuinely care for you, Mama Clara. We want you to be part of our lives, to live with us, to be a grandmother to our kids. But for that, we need that place. We need that house. You could make that possible. You could be our solution." Her words sounded polished and rehearsed, yet felt hollow. Because if they truly cared for me, they wouldn't be asking me to give everything away. They would simply want to spend time with me. "Tasha," I finally said, "let me propose a question. If I didn't have this condo, if I owned nothing valuable, would you still come to see me?" She blinked in surprise. "Of course, Mama Clara." "What type of question is that? Then why have you only come to me about the condo in these last few months? Why do you never reach out just to check on me? Why does every talk end with the same demand?" Tasha opened her mouth, but words didn't come since there was no reply. Or, to be honest, the reply was clear, and she wasn't ready to face it. She remained quiet for a few moments, then stood up. "I guess I'm interrupting. We can talk another time." And she walked away, leaving me alone in that vacant space. Yet I didn't feel a sense of loneliness. Instead, I felt liberated, as every discussion, every bit of manipulation, every untruth only reaffirmed that I had chosen wisely. That night, while I sat in my new condo, I went over all the papers once more. The deed for the new place, the invoices from the previous sale, and the recordings I had collected. Everything was organized, everything was set. The only thing now was the final moment, the showdown. I could sense it approaching quickly since Devin and Tasha lacked patience, and their urgency would lead them to slip up. A blunder I was prepared for. I took a deep breath, sipped on a cup of warm tea, and got myself ready for what lay ahead. The battle was just starting, and this time, I had all the tools I needed. 2 weeks later, the time finally came. I had known that eventually Devin would run out of patience and drop by without warning, trying to force a discussion with me. That day came at last. It was Saturday morning, and I was in my new condo sipping coffee by the window, observing life outside. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was Devin. "Mom, I'm heading to your place now. We must finish our chat today. You can't keep avoiding us. I'll arrive in half an hour." The call ended before I could reply. I stared at my phone. My heart raced, but it wasn't due to fear. It was sheer excitement. I had been waiting for this moment and had prepared thoroughly, and now it was finally happening. I dressed calmly in comfortable pants and a light-colored blouse, nothing too fancy. I gathered my hair, put on my shoes, and made my way to the old unit. Yes, I still had the keys. The new owner wasn't moving in until the next week, so I was technically allowed to enter. I arrived before Devin, climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and waited. The condo was nearly vacant. Only a couple of boxes were left in the corners. The sound of my footsteps bounced off the empty walls. I lowered myself to the floor, resting my back against the wall as I waited. 5 minutes later, I heard quick walking in the hallway. The door swung open. Devin stormed in like a force of nature. Tasha trailed behind him. "Mom," he began to say, but halted abruptly upon seeing the vacant apartment. His expression changed from puzzlement to shock in an instant. "What's happening here? Where's the furniture? Where is everything?" I gradually got to my feet. "I sold it," I replied in a calm manner. "You sold the furniture?" Tasha questioned in a high tone. "Not just the furniture," I clarified. "I sold the condo as well." The ensuing silence was overwhelming. Devin gazed at me as if he couldn't comprehend what he had just heard. Tasha turned pale. "What did you say?" Devin muttered. "I sold the condo," I reiterated, this time with more force. 3 weeks ago. The paperwork is finished. The new owner will be moving in next week." Devin lost his temper. "How could you sell the condo? I promised it to my wife. Give me the money from the sale right now." His voice rose sharply. His hands shook. Tasha began to weep. "But Mom, how could you treat us like this? We were relying on this place. We had plans, we had dreams, and you've shattered them." I remained resolute. I didn't shift an inch. I met their gazes directly. This condo was mine. It was never theirs. I had the right to do whatever I wanted with it. Devin stepped closer to me, his face flushed with fury. "Don't you ever say that. I'm your son, your only family. That condo was my inheritance. It was the one thing you were meant to pass down to me." "Your inheritance?" I repeated in a calm tone. "Devin, you're 38 years old. You've got a job. You have your health. You have your entire life ahead of you. And you were already making plans for what to do with my belongings when I'm gone. That isn't being a son. It's being a parasite." Tasha yelled back, offended. "How can you speak to him like that? He has done everything for you. He supported you after your husband passed away." I let out a bitter chuckle. "Supported me? Tasha, your husband showed up once a month. He only called when he wanted something, and both of you spent the last few years acting like I was a burden, something to endure until I was gone." "But Mom," Devin started, his tone now softer, underlined with desperation. "My wife and I don't have anywhere else to go. We can't end up on the streets. We need that money. It's rightfully yours." "Rightfully yours?" I responded in disbelief. "What right? The right to be my son, the right to have entered this world. That does not grant you authority over my existence or the choices I make regarding my belongings." Devin raked his fingers through his hair. He was panicking. His flawless scheme had fallen apart. "At the very least, provide us the money from the sale. If it's already sold, you must have the funds. Hand it over to us. We can still acquire the house, I ask you." It was the first instance in many years that I had heard him utter pleas. However, it was not a sincere request. It was the cry of someone who is in defeat and realizes it. Tasha came closer to me. "Mama Clara, please consider us. Think about the grandchildren you could have. Without a house, how can we begin a family? How can we give you those grandchildren you desire dearly?" "The grandchildren I desire dearly," I murmured softly. "Tasha, you never intended to give me grandchildren. You wished to utilize the concept of grandchildren to control me, to instill guilt, to compel me into surrendering everything." She recoiled as if I had struck her. "That's false. We genuinely desire a family." "Then what happened to the money?" Devin interjected. "Where did it go?" "In my bank account," I answered. "I spent part of it on a new condo, smaller and more comfortable for me, and the remainder is invested for my retirement, for my peace of mind, for myself." Devin glared at me with intense loathing. "You're selfish, a self-absorbed old woman who only thinks of herself." "And what did you want me to do?" I retorted. "Hand over everything and have nothing left? Survive on leftovers, praying you would grace me with your presence once a year?" Tasha was sobbing theatrically. "But we wished for you to be with us. We would care for you." "That's a falsehood," I stated decisively. "You didn't wish to care for me. You craved my money, and when you had it, you would have relegated me to the cheapest assisted living facility available." Devin shook his head in disbelief. "You're delusional. You're fabricating things." "I'm not inventing anything," I insisted. I then retrieved my phone from my pocket. "I possess evidence." "Evidence of what?" Tasha inquired, her voice quivering. "Of everything. Of every discussion where you spoke about me as if I were already gone. Of every scheme you devised behind my back. Of every unkind word you uttered, assuming I couldn't hear you." The blood drained from Devin's face. "You recorded us?" "I recorded you," I affirmed, because I needed to ensure I wasn't imagining things. I required proof that you genuinely viewed me solely as a means to meet your desires. Devon stepped closer to me, fists tightly balled. Hand over that phone now. No, I retorted, taking a step back. These recordings serve as my protection in case you act foolish. Foolish how? Tasha inquired. Like attempting to bring legal action against me? Like trying to seize what is rightfully mine? Like claiming I'm not capable or mentally sound? I've seen enough to understand how this unfolds. Devon let out a dry laugh. You're delusional. Completely delusional. Perhaps, I replied. Or perhaps I've finally regained my clarity after years of being pushed around. A tense silence enveloped us. The three of us locked eyes. The atmosphere was dense with anger, sorrow, and truths that had finally surfaced. Then Tasha broke the silence, her tone icy. We'll never let this go. Never. I can handle that, I answered. Devon gestured toward the exit. Come on, Tasha. There's nothing left for us here. She trailed after him, but before leaving, she glanced back at me. I hope wealth brings you joy, Mama Clara, because it will cost you your only family. It already cost me my family long ago, Devon, I said. I just didn't recognize it until now. They exited, slamming the door shut. The noise reverberated in the silent condo. I remained alone, yet I didn't feel a sense of loneliness. I felt triumphant. I felt liberated. For the first time in years, I had defended my rights. I had said no, and I had endured. I sat back down on the floor. My legs shook from the adrenaline rush. My heart was still pounding. But there was something else, a warm sensation in my chest. It was relief. It was tranquility. It was the realization of reclaiming my life. I lingered in that vacant condo for nearly an hour, seated on the floor, staring at the bare walls, digesting everything that had transpired. I held no regrets. For even a moment, I didn't question my choice. Yet there was an unmistakable feeling in the air, a sense of conclusion, of closure. This had been my residence for 3 decades. I had prepared countless meals here. I had grieved my husband's passing here. I had aged alone here. And now, I had regained my freedom here. I gradually rose, wandered through each empty room, brushing my fingers against the walls. Thank you, I murmured. Thank you for everything. And I departed, shutting the door behind me for the final time. Upon reaching my new condo, the difference was remarkable. The windows invited in daylight. The area was compact, yet inviting. The scent was fresh, filled with new possibilities and beginnings. I brewed myself a cup of tea, settled by the window, and for the first time in a long while, I truly smiled. Not a forced grin, not a polite expression, but a genuine smile of happiness, satisfaction. I had done something for my own benefit. I prioritized my wellness instead of letting others manipulate me, and that was empowering. The phone rang, breaking my moment of tranquility. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before picking up, but I eventually answered. Hello? A woman's voice came through that I didn't know. Mrs. Johnson, it's Simone, Tasha's sister. I need to have a conversation with you. My stomach nodded. Simone. Tasha had shared everything with her sister, and now I was facing another attack, an effort to make me feel guilty through someone else. Go ahead, I responded, keeping my tone even. Mrs. Johnson, Tasha explained what took place, and I must say I'm very disappointed in you. How could you treat your own son that way? He needed your support and you turned away from him. I took a deep breath. Simone, with all due respect, you don't have the complete picture. You only know what your sister told you, the narrative where I'm the bad guy. But there is much more to the story. She scoffed. What more could exist? You sold the condo your son required. That's all I need to hear. My son didn't need that condo, I replied firmly. My son wanted that condo. There is a significant difference, Simone persisted, her tone harsh and accusatory. Tasha is heartbroken. Devon is heartbroken. You shattered their dreams, their future plans, and for what? To buy a smaller place and save money you won't even enjoy for long. It's utterly selfish. I let her speak without interruption. I allowed her to express everything she needed to say. When she finally paused, anticipating my reaction, I replied with a calmness that even surprised me. Simone, I understand you want to support your sister. That's normal. But let me ask you this. When was the last time Devin and Tasha came to visit me without wanting something? When was the last time they called just to check on me? When was the last time they regarded me as a person instead of an ATM? There was a tense silence on the line. They have their own lives, Simone eventually said, sounding less sure. Their jobs and responsibilities. Exactly, I said. They have their own lives and I have mine, and my life does not revolve around endlessly sacrificing myself for their comfort. Simone attempted to argue further. But Mrs. Johnson, you are his mother. Parents should always support their children. They should always be present. I was there for 38 years, I replied, raising my voice slightly. I provided my son with everything I could. But there comes a moment when children need to be independent. If at 38, Devin still expects me to resolve his issues, then I've not succeeded as a mother. But I will not continue to fail by letting him take advantage of me. Simone ended the call without saying farewell. I looked at my phone. I realized this wouldn't be the last time I would hear from them. Tasha and Devin would likely seek out others to pressure, guilt, or break me. Nevertheless, I had already made up my mind, and no one could persuade me otherwise. That evening, before going to bed, I checked my online bank balance. It was there, over $100,000. This amount was more than I had ever possessed before throughout my life, and it was entirely mine. No one could take it from me. No one could demand it from me. It represented my safety, my liberation made visible in digits on a screen. I fell asleep that night feeling calm. There were no nightmares or worries, just tranquility. The next few days felt oddly routine. I focused on settling into my new apartment. I purchased plants for the windowsills. I hung light beige curtains. I arranged my books neatly on the small shelf. Every task reminded me that this place belonged to me, that no one would judge it, that no one would suggest changes. This was my haven, my domain. A week later, I got a text from Devin. It was lengthy and filled with carefully crafted phrases. It started with, "Mom, I've had time to reflect, and I think we both said hurtful things. I understand I've let you down as a son. I know I haven't been there for you like I should have, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. You will always be my mother. I wish we could have a conversation to sort this out." I read the message 3 times, hoping to detect genuine emotion in the words, but I found none. It never said, "I'm sorry." It didn't recognize the real pain he had caused me. It was merely a standard apology, another effort to reconnect and see if he could still gain something. I chose not to respond. I simply put my phone down and moved on with my day. 2 days later, I got another message. This time, it was from Tasha. "Mama Clara, please don't shut us out. I realize we have made mistakes, but everyone deserves a new chance. Devin is really struggling. He hardly eats or sleeps. He's still trying to figure out how to mend things with you. Please give him that opportunity." I didn't respond to that message either because I recognized it as an act. Emotional manipulation was their final tactic to weaken my resolve. One afternoon, while basking in the sun at a park close to my new condo, I noticed an older woman sitting on a bench. She was alone, feeding the pigeons breadcrumbs. I approached her and took a seat, beside her. "What a lovely day," I remarked. She beamed at me. "Absolutely lovely," she replied. "I come to this place every day. It's my time for serenity." I inquired whether she had family. She affirmed with a nod. 3 kids and 8 grandkids, but I seldom see them. They're occupied with their own lives, and I get that. I don't wish to be a hassle. Her words echoed my own feelings from just a few months prior. "You're not a hassle," I reassured her. "You are a human being, and you are worthy of respect." She gazed at me in surprise, then smiled with tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you." That was what I needed to hear. We conversed for nearly an hour. She shared her life experiences, her challenges, and her letdowns, while I shared my story about Devin, Tasha, the condo, and the choices I've made. She listened without passing judgment. Once I was done, she took my hand. "You made the right choice," she stated with conviction. "I wish I had your bravery, but I'm scared of being all by myself." "Being by yourself isn't the worst thing that can happen," I told her. "The worst situation is being amidst people who make you feel isolated." She nodded slowly, as if my words resonated with her on a deeper level. We embraced as we parted, and as I made my way back home, I felt something different. Connection, understanding, purpose. I had been so absorbed in my troubled relationship with Devin that I had overlooked others in the world, other narratives, other feelings of isolation I could relate to. That evening, I made a choice. I would seek out activities for seniors, classes, workshops, anything really. I needed to create a fresh life, one that didn't center around my son. I went online and began my search. I came across a painting workshop held on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon. I had zero experience in painting, but something about the description intrigued me. Encouragement without judgment, creativity without stress, community without expectations. I registered before I could second-guess myself. The first session was in 3 days, and though I felt a bit anxious, excitement also bubbled within me. A thrill I hadn't felt in years, the joy of beginning something new, of uncovering a side of myself I had not yet discovered. Meanwhile, the texts from Devin and Tasha kept coming. They were becoming more urgent and more manipulative. "Mom, please, you can't keep ignoring us. We're your family. Mama Clara, Devin is thinking about therapy. He genuinely wants to improve. He simply requires your encouragement. Mom, please respond so we know you are all right. We are concerned for you." Every text was an effort to open a door I had shut. But I had changed. I was no longer the same woman who was swayed by kind words. I had transformed into someone stronger, someone who finally realized that saying no doesn't reflect poorly on you. It signifies that you respect your limits. Limits aren't barriers, they are choices about when to open or close doors. On Sunday, I received a final phone call from a familiar number. It was Brenda, a distant relative I hadn't encountered in a long time. "Clara May," she spoke seriously. "Devin reached out to me. He informed me about the situation, and I want to express that I comprehend your viewpoint, but I also urge you to think about forgiveness. Family is paramount, and harboring resentment only harms yourself." I absorbed her words, inhaled deeply, and responded, "Brenda, it's not resentment. It's a choice. The choice to protect myself from further pain. If family matters so much, why didn't Devin show it when he had the chance? Why does he only recall family when he wants something?" She was taken aback and paused. I seized the moment of silence. "I value your call, Brenda, but I have made my decision," and I ended the conversation. Tuesday came quicker than I anticipated. It marked the day of my initial painting lesson. I woke earlier than usual, enjoyed a peaceful breakfast, and put on comfortable attire, gray pants and a soft ivory shirt. Nothing extravagant, yet I felt content. Upon arriving at the venue, I entered a small room filled with light. There were 6 other participants, all women over 50. The instructor, Ms. Eleanor Vance, had white hair gathered into a messy bun and a friendly smile that instantly made you feel at ease. "Good morning," she spoke gently. "Today we won't stress about achieving perfection. We're simply going to allow our hands to convey our feelings." And thus, my new journey commenced. Initially, I felt awkward. The brush quivered in my grip, and the colors merged in odd ways on the canvas. However, Ms. Vance moved between the tables, sharing lovely insights. "Art has no errors, only discoveries." After an hour, something within me softened. I ceased overthinking. I stopped criticizing every stroke and merely painted. I wasn't sure what I was making. It was abstract, chaotic, yet it was undeniably mine. When the class concluded, I felt lighter, as if I had released something I had clung to for years. The other women also showcased their creations. Each one held a story. Each had faced her struggles, and there was no judgment among us. It was a nurturing environment, a place where I could simply be Clara May without being anyone's mother or widow, just myself. After the lesson, a woman came over to me. Her name was Ruth Baker. She had short, curly hair and a laugh that was contagious. "Is this your first time?" she questioned. "Yes," I answered. "It's clear, but in a good way. You've clearly got a lot to express," she said. We both laughed. She asked me to have coffee with her. We headed to a nearby cafe, and while sipping our warm drinks, Ruth shared her story. She had been married for 4 decades. Her husband passed away 3 years earlier, and her kids lived in different cities. They came to see her once a year if she was fortunate. "I was very down at first," she confessed. "I thought my life was finished. But then I realized that if no one was going to take control of my life for me, I had to do it on my own. Now, I'm painting, dancing, and truly living." Her words struck a chord with me. That was precisely what I was doing, taking back my life. Ruth became my first genuine friend in a long time. After every class, we began to meet up. Sometimes we got coffee, sometimes we took walks in the park, and we always shared everything and anything without holding back or judging. It felt freeing to connect with someone who understood the process of reinventing oneself at this stage of life. 2 weeks went by. 2 weeks filled with calmness, new habits, and days brimming with little pleasures. But of course, tranquility couldn't stick around forever. One Friday afternoon, I heard a knock at my condominium door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peered through the peephole, and my heart paused for a moment. It was Tasha. I opened the door slightly. "What are you doing here?" I inquired, still keeping her outside. Tasha looked different, thinner and more worn out. Dark circles were under her eyes. "Mama Clara, please. I just want to speak. 5 minutes. That's all I need." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to shut the door on her, but another side was intrigued. What could she possibly want now? I opened the door wider but didn't allow her to enter. "Talk," I said, with my arms crossed. Tasha inhaled deeply. "I came to say I'm sorry. Honestly, Devin doesn't know I'm here. He's upset. He claims he'll never forgive you, but I can't continue living like this. I can't handle this tension and resentment. I want you to know I'm sorry and that I understand your reasons for what you did." Her words seemed practiced, almost like a speech she had prepared. "You're sorry," I echoed. "Or are you sorry that you lost the money?" Tasha looked down. "I know you think we were only after the money, and maybe we were at first, but we aren't bad people, Mama Clara. We were in a state of despair, anxious about what lay ahead, and we viewed your condo as the answer to all our issues. However, that does not justify how we treated you. At least she acknowledged something, which was more than what Devin accomplished. I appreciate your apology, Tasha, yet it doesn't alter the situation." She glanced up quickly, but I believed we could start anew. We could create a genuine bond. No selfish motives, no pressure, just like a family. I sighed. "I wish I could trust you, but rebuilding trust takes time, and honestly, I'm not sure I have that time or energy." Tasha nodded slowly, tears beginning to stream down her face. "I understand. I just wanted you to realize that not everyone is like Devin, that I sincerely regret everything, and if you ever choose to give us another opportunity, I will be here." She began to walk away, but before heading down the stairs, I faced her. Tasha halted. "If you genuinely want to prove that you've changed, don't just use words. Show it through your actions, but not for me. Do it for yourself. Build your life without relying on inheritances, without waiting for someone else to fix your issues. That's the only way I could ever see you as someone truly transformed." She nodded and departed. I'm uncertain if she would genuinely change. Maybe not, but at least she tried something that Devin never did, owning up to her mistake. That evening, I sat down to reflect on everything that had occurred in the past month. I had sold my condo. I confronted my son. I established boundaries. I started painting. I made a friend. I regained my self-respect. Although I still faced moments of doubt and sadness, wondering if I had chosen the right path, deep down, I was sure. I had done what was necessary. I had saved myself because no one else would. The days that followed maintained their calm rhythm. The painting classes became my favorite part of the week. Miss Vance taught us various techniques: watercolor, oil, acrylic, and each session made me feel freer and more like myself. One afternoon, while I was painting, Miss Vance came over to my table. "Clara May," she said gently, "may I ask you something?" "Certainly. Have you perceived how your painting has evolved since you began?" I looked at her, puzzled. "In what way?" "At first, your strokes were small, hesitant, and controlled, but now they are wide, assured, and unrestricted. That indicates an internal shift, a form of freedom." I felt a lump in my throat because she was correct. I had indeed changed. That change was evident even in aspects I hadn't noticed. I shared with her that I had been through a tough time recently. I had to make painful choices that were nonetheless essential. Miss Vance smiled. "The best choices often hurt initially, but they ultimately give you wings." Those words lingered. With me, lifted me up. Indeed, that was how I felt, as if, after being held back for years, I could finally soar. Ruth and I began to organize a brief getaway, just for the weekend, to a nearby seaside town to explore museums, to meander without purpose, to relish life without needing approval from anyone. It was a minor plan, yet it mattered immensely. It signified that I could dream, that my life was still unfolding, that there were more experiences awaiting me. When I confided in Ruth about my issues with Devin, she didn't criticize me. She simply embraced me and remarked, "Kids don't realize that parents have the right to enjoy life too. They believe we exist solely to cater to them, but you've taught them something valuable. You've taught them limits." 3 months had gone by since our dispute. 3 months filled with peace, new habits, painting, camaraderie with Ruth, afternoons spent in the park, and evenings lost in books on my cozy if small sofa. My life had established a flow that brought me contentment. It wasn't a wild joy. It was a quiet, profound, genuine kind of happiness. However, just as it often goes, when you finally settle into serenity, the past resurfaces. It was a Saturday morning. I was making coffee when someone rang the doorbell. I wasn't anticipating anyone. I peered through the peephole, and my heart halted for a moment. It was Devin, alone, without his spouse. He appeared different, leaner, with an unshaven face, and dark circles hinted at sleepless nights. I paused before opening the door, but something about his stance compelled me. I opened the door yet remained in the doorway, preventing him from entering. "What do you want, Devin?" He raised his hands in a sign of peace. "I just want to chat. No yelling, no requests, just a conversation, please." There was something in his tone that felt distinct, more fragile, more sincere. I let him step inside. We settled in the little living room. He glanced around with an odd look. "Is this your new home?" he inquired. "Yes, it's nice. Small, but sufficient for me." He nodded quietly. An awkward silence lingered before he spoke again. "Mom, I came to let you know that you were correct about everything." I raised an eyebrow, taken aback. Devin never acknowledged he was wrong. "Continue," I urged. He ran his hands through his hair. "The last 3 months have been the hardest of my life. Tasha and I nearly broke up. We lost the house we were hoping for. I faced challenges at my job because I was easily sidetracked, all stemming from my inability to accept that I lost something that was never really mine to begin with." I remained quiet, allowing him to share his thoughts. He mentioned going to therapy, where the therapist helped him confront truths he was reluctant to acknowledge. He realized that he had viewed me as something to be exploited, rather than recognizing me as an individual with my own needs and the right to lead my life, and he admitted that this was inexcusable. I sensed a stirring in my chest. It wasn't relief, not just yet, but it was something else. I expressed my support for his therapy in a careful tone. "It's a positive move," I noted. Devin looked up with tears welling in his eyes. "I didn't come here to request money, nor to ask you to alter your will. I am simply here to apologize. Sincerely apologize. I understand if you can never find it in your heart to forgive me." His tone felt honest. After many years, it had a ring of truth. Yet I had learned to tread cautiously. "I appreciate your apology, Devin, but just saying sorry doesn't undo the many years of hurt. It doesn't erase the suffering you caused me." He acknowledged my words with a nod. "I understand, and I'm not expecting an apology to fix things. I just wanted you to know that I've finally grasped the consequences of my actions, and I am working on becoming a better person, not for you or even for Tasha, but for me, because I'm unhappy with who I've become." We shared a quiet moment for a few more minutes, and then I posed a question that had been on my mind for ages. "Devin, why didn't you ever come to see me? Why did spending time with me feel like a chore?" He inhaled deeply. "Because you reminded me of Dad, and losing him was so painful that I felt the need to distance myself from anything associated with him, including you. It might sound terrible, and it is selfish, but that is my truth." His statement struck me hard, but at least it provided some clarity. Although it wasn't a comforting answer, at least it was honest. "I miss your dad too," I replied softly, "every single day." But isolating from me didn't lessen the hurt. It only led to me feeling even lonelier. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I wish I could turn back time," he confessed, his voice trembling. "Do everything differently. But I can't. All I can do is strive to improve from here on out. If you ever choose to give me another opportunity, I promise things will be different. But if you decide not to, I completely understand." He rose to leave, and before stepping out, he paused to look back. "Is it all right if I call you occasionally, just to check in on you without needing anything in return?" He hesitated for a moment. "Without needing anything in return?" "Sure you can," I said. "But if you never try to control me again, and if you treat me the way you did in the past, there won't be any more opportunities." He nodded in acknowledgement. "I get it." Then he left. After shutting the door, I remained standing for a long while, reflecting and feeling. I was uncertain if Devin would truly change this time, or if things were different. However, he had at least made the initial move. He recognized his fault, which was more than Tasha had ever done, more than anyone, really. That afternoon I attended my painting class. Miss Vance sensed a change in me. "Did something occur?" she inquired. "Yes," I answered. "My son came to say sorry, and I'm not sure how I should feel." She smiled knowingly. "You don't need to have all the answers. Emotions can be complicated. They can exist together. You can feel pain and hope simultaneously." That day, I painted with a new kind of depth. I used dark hues combined with bright ones, reflecting my emotions perfectly. The shadows of the past blended with the possibility of a brighter future. Once I finished, Ruth approached to look at my art. "It's beautiful," she commented, sad yet filled with hope. "Exactly," I responded. "It's how I feel." That night, while alone in my apartment, I contemplated forgiveness. I wondered if forgiving someone who had caused you deep pain was a sign of weakness or strength. I reached a decision. Forgiveness wasn't for Devin. It was a way for me to lighten the burden I had been carrying, allowing me to move on without bitterness tainting my spirit. Yet forgiving didn't equate to forgetting. It didn't mean letting him hurt me again. It was about releasing and continuing on my path. The next few days felt much easier, as though a heavy load had been removed from me. Devin called me 2 times that week. Our conversations were brief and straightforward, checking in on how I was doing and sharing snippets about his day, without demanding anything or trying to manipulate me. Although I stayed cautious, I began to feel that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a glimmer of hope. Finally, Ruth and I went on our trip. We traveled to a seaside town. We strolled along the shore, explored art galleries, and enjoyed seafood at quaint restaurants, during which I laughed. I laughed genuinely with every part of my being, in a way I hadn't in years. During one of those instances, strolling along the beach with my feet immersed in the chilly water, Ruth shared something I'll always remember. "Clara May," she said, taking my hand. "I have pride in you, in the way you stood up for yourself, in how you took back your life. You possess more courage than you realize." Her remarks filled me with a feeling that was difficult to express, as I had felt for a long time, weak, fearful, and unnoticed. Yet now, someone viewed me as courageous. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps I had been brave all along without even knowing it. Courage is not the lack of fear, it is taking action in spite of it. And that's precisely what I had done. 6 months had gone by since that confrontational day, half a year of relearning how to live, of uncovering who I was without the burden of guilt, free from the pressures of what others expected of me. It was a Sunday morning. Sunlight streamed through my window, brightening the plants now adorning every part of my small apartment. I got out of bed at a leisurely pace, brewed my coffee, and settled by the window, just as I did every morning. However, this time, the atmosphere felt different. There was a sense of wholeness, a complete resolution. My phone buzzed with a message from Ruth. "Are you set for today's exhibition?" I grinned. Today was significant. Miss Vance had arranged a small exhibition for her students' artwork, and I had opted to take part. I chose my outfit with care, putting on an olive green dress I had purchased the week prior. I styled my hair, added minimal makeup, and gazed into the mirror. The reflection staring back was not the same as 6 months ago. There was a glow in her eyes, resilience, tranquility, regained dignity. I reached the art gallery an hour early. My 3 artworks were already displayed on the wall. The first piece was somber, dominated by grays and blacks. It depicted my life in the past. The second was disordered, vibrant colors intertwined with shadows. It illustrated the struggle, the awakening. And the third was radiant, abundant in yellows and oranges, showcasing my current state, my liberation. Ms. Vance approached beaming. "Clara May, your art conveys a complete narrative. It's wonderful to witness your growth." People began to show up. Fellow students, family, friends. Ruth arrived carrying a bunch of wildflowers for me. "I'm incredibly proud of you," she said, embracing me warmly. We strolled among the artworks. Each piece shared a unique story. Every woman had portrayed her struggles on those canvases, and there was something profound about witnessing how pain could evolve into beauty, how creation could be a form of healing. As I was explaining the significance of my second painting to a woman, I heard a familiar voice call from behind me. "Mom?" I turned around slowly. Devin stood at the door by himself, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. He appeared anxious, uncertain, as if he wondered whether he was welcome. I walked toward him with measured steps. "What brings you here?" I asked, careful but not unfriendly. "You mentioned this exhibition to me," he answered. "I wanted to visit. I'm curious about what you've created, if that's all right." I gazed into his eyes, looking for anything hidden, but all I found was sincere interest. "It's fine. You can stay." His expression brightened with relief. We moved over to my artworks together. He examined them quietly for a long time and then spoke gently. "This first piece represents how you felt before, right?" I confirmed with a nod. "And this third one shows how you feel now." I nodded again. He indicated the chaotic painting in the middle. "And this represents me. I am the chaos that broke into your darkness, yet also the one who guided you towards the light." His words took me by surprise with their insight. I hadn't considered it that way, I confessed. "But you're correct." Devin looked at me. "Mom, I have spent a lot of time reflecting in these last few months. I have worked on myself, and I came to a realization. You didn't deprive me of anything. Instead, you provided me with something I had never experienced. You showed me what it means to stand up for oneself and what it is to live with pride. Though it was painful back then, I now understand it. A lump formed in my throat. I'm at a loss for words. You don't have to say anything, he said. I just wanted you to hear that, and I also wanted to give you this. He offered me the flowers. They might not be much, but I picked them out myself. No assistance from Tasha, no advice from anyone, just thoughts of you. I accepted the flowers, my hands shaking. They were simple, yet lovely. Thank you, I breathed. Devin spent 2 hours at the exhibition. He conversed with Ruth, Miss Vance, and other students, and for the first time, I saw him truly engaged in my life, in what I had created. Before he left, he embraced me. It was a different hug. It was not the mechanical one from before. It was a genuine, heartfelt hug. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said, and I apologize for taking so long to express that. After he departed, Ruth approached me. That's your son? I nodded. He has changed, or at least he is making an effort. She smiled. Sometimes people have to lose something to truly value it. Perhaps your courage taught him a vital lesson. Perhaps, I replied. Only time will reveal. But it's no longer my duty to fix him. That's his own challenge, and I have mine. My challenge is to continue growing and to keep living. A week later, I got a letter. It was a message from Tasha. With curiosity, I opened it. Mama Clara, it started, I don't anticipate your forgiveness. I don't even think you'll respond. I only want you to be aware that Devin and I have parted ways. This isn't because of you, but because we both finally understood that we had formed our relationship on an unstable ground, filled with expectations and dependency. Both of us are now focusing on personal growth, and perhaps one day, if it's meant to be, we can become better individuals. I appreciate you teaching me that saying no is also a form of love, self-love. I carefully folded the letter. I didn't experience happiness about their split, nor did I feel sorrow. Instead, I felt a sense of neutrality. Everyone seemed to be finding their own paths, and that felt acceptable. The next few months went on in their calm routine. Devin would call me once a week. The talks were simple, free from expectations and manipulation, just sincere inquiries about my life, and I opened up. I spoke to him about my art, Ruth, and the books I was enjoying. He paid close attention. He genuinely listened. I'm unsure if our connection will return to what it was, but honestly, I don't want it to revert. I desire something new and healthier, built on mutual respect instead of obligation. A year after the confrontation, I found myself in the same park where I first encountered the woman who fed the pigeons, and there she was again, seated on the same bench. I approached her, smiling. Do you remember me? Her face brightened when she looked up. The courageous woman. Yes, I remember you. We sat together and I shared everything that had transpired. She listened with great interest, and once I was done, she grasped my hand. You didn't just save yourself, you also saved me. After our talk, I followed your advice and established boundaries with my kids. Some were upset, but others understood. Now, I have a more genuine relationship with them. Thank you. Her words moved me deeply, knowing that I had made an impact, not just in my life, but in someone else's too. That night, as I prepared for bed, I wrote in a journal I had begun. Today marks 1 year since I made the toughest choice of my life. 1 year since I prioritized my dignity over seeking others' approval. I can honestly say that I have no regrets. I discovered that love isn't endless sacrifice, that family doesn't mean blind obligation, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that aging isn't the end. It's simply another chapter, a time when I can finally become who I was always meant to be. I belong to myself now. I am just me, and that is more than sufficient. It is everything. I shut the diary, turned off the lamp, and drifted off to sleep with a smile. The smile of a liberated woman. Did you enjoy my tale? Which city are you tuning in from? Let's connect in the comments. If you appreciated the story, you can help me by sending a super thanks, allowing me to share more stories like this. I truly appreciate your kind support. I eagerly await your thoughts on the story. On the screen, you will find 2 new life stories that I strongly suggest. There is much more available on my channel. Remember to subscribe. I hope to see you in the next life story with affection and regard.